Hey, Careblazers. Thank you, Jan. Anna, you're an hour early. Are you still here? That's okay. It's all happening here. I'm trying to figure out how to get this set up the way that I want, but I am not sure I know how. All right, so I'm here a little bit early, but not too early, actually. What time is it? 3 minutes early. I am just here for a live Q&A. So I decided to open this up to everybody on my channel. Usually, I do live Q&As regularly, but I do them with my amazing Care Course members. I see you here, some of you. But I don't really do this very often. I don't open it up for a lot of people. And I just thought I wanted to do so. It's my birthday month, and I wanted to give back and do something awesome. So we'll see how this goes and whether we might want to do some more in the future. Hello from your beach house. Oh, that sounds awesome, Susan. I am in a mountain house, but it's not mine. Just renting it. Oh, hi, Weddy from New Zealand. That is definitely a place I want to go at some point. I would love to go to New Zealand and visit. Hi, Brenda. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Mildred. Hey, Holly. It's nice to see some familiar names here from my Care Course members. Listen, okay, so this is how it's going to work. If you have a question, leave it. I'll do my best to answer as many as I can. There's no setup. There's no prep. There's no sending things elsewhere. It's just kind of, let's see what you guys have. And I'm going to hang out for a bit. Nico is in front of me, looking out at something, probably something moving in the trees. And there's no storm right now. Sounds like everything's going to be good. Hey, Steve. Hi, Myra. Marion. People from everywhere. You're so welcome, Pacific Loon. I'm glad to hear that Jesus is God. Thank you. Hi, Shridat. You know, Carol, so Carol's asking, does the full moon really affect sundowning more? I am not familiar with any research on that. No idea. But the evening time affects sundowning, like the fact that the changing of the day, the nighttime, the shadows, the kind of, there's some different theories about why sundown happens, but I am not familiar with anything about the full moon causing it. So I think we've all heard kind of like, oh, there must be a full moon out. Like people start to act strange, weird things happen. I don't know if any of that is rooted in science. But in terms of sundowning, just as the evening hours wear in, that tends to happen. Certain behaviors start to happen more. Number one, or one of the ideas is just kind of the lighting and it being more dark, more shadows. The other idea is just fatigue from throughout the day. Like the brain, a lot of times you might notice your loved one tends to do better during the beginning of the day. And as the day goes on, the brain just gets fatigued. And so it's harder on them. Some ways to try to help with sundowning, if your loved one is having sundowning, would be to, number one, get your loved one engaged in an activity they actually enjoy just prior to when sundowning usually happens. So like if sundowning usually happens around 6, around 5:30, 5:45, you want to get them engaged in some activity. You want to make sure there's adequate lighting in the home. So like turning on some lamps, making sure there's night lights throughout. Those are some good things to keep in mind if you're struggling with sundowning. And actually what I will do is just pop in a video on sundowning for you. Hopefully that will help. I suppose I could look into to see if there's actually research I'm not familiar with. Copy in terms of the full moon. So there's that video. I just popped in the link for you. The chat's going pretty fast, so I think I may have lost. Oh, Carol, I just popped that link in for you. Hi, Anitra. Hi, Barbara. Thank you, SC44889. um, Eileen, that is such a hot topic and a sticky one. You're asking if there's any reports the COVID vaccines have caused increasing dementia. So nothing has come out in terms of like something that's been published and widely available, but there have been some anecdotal cases. Like, for instance, my husband works at a neurology clinic, and there's a lot of people coming in with different and various complaints just about kind of brain fog and headaches and different. We wouldn't call it like dementia, but just there are some cognitive effects people are reporting. But the extent of it, what else could be involved, I'm not sure. And I know they have the VARS, the adverse reporting system. So you can always check that out. I wonder if I can find that link for you. But that's a highly controversial topic that a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about. I want to try to give you the database that you can look up on your own. I'm going to drop it in for you right now. So if you want to research, I believe I've just dropped a link for you, Eileen. You can search like memory, attention, cognition, and one of the options to search and see what's coming up for you there. Hi, Myra. Donepezil, so I don't prescribe any medications, but donepezil, otherwise known as Aricept, is a common medication. It's kind of a first-line treatment for people who have dementia. We don't have great medicines for dementia. We don't. Families sometimes just want to try anything that's out there because there's no other thing to give. Usually one of the major side effects from that is kind of like loose stool, which for a lot of older adults the physician I would work with in the geriatric assessment clinic would always be like, it's kind of like it could be a good thing, especially if your loved one has some constipation. I haven't heard of anything too severe happening with donepezil, like any severe adverse side effects. However, that being said, every person is different. Every person is on different medications. Every person has different other healthcare conditions. So it's definitely something to be talking to with whoever's prescribing that to you. But for the most part, I've never really heard anything too bad about it. Okay, Susan, what response do you suggest when my loved one lies about not driving when we really think he did? So I'm going to assume that your loved one shouldn't be driving based on that question. And if that's the case, then that's where if he shouldn't be driving and you think he did and he's lying to you, he's saying he didn't, well, of course he probably wants to keep driving. Like, a lot of people really struggle. Driving is such a huge part of independence. So there's nothing, I would just drop trying to get him to tell the truth. What good is that going to do anyway? Like, probably not a worthwhile avenue to go down, but maybe thinking, okay, what do you need to do? What do you have to have in place to keep him safe? So whether it's, keeping the car keys out of reach, maybe it's putting a tracker on his car so you're able to track it. Like, the key here when it comes to driving is, how do you keep him safe from potentially like getting in the car, wandering off, getting in an accident, hurting somebody, hurting himself? So if he's lying about not driving when we really think he did, he's probably just going to continue lying. I don't think it's a worthwhile endeavor to try to convince him, see, we caught you lying, then what? I really do believe like we have to do things to keep our loved ones safe. But one of the my top teachings I could ever give anybody, and I wish it was something that every single Careblazer would hear right away, as soon as their loved one was diagnosed with dementia, is that maintaining as much as possible a good relationship with your loved one who has dementia is one of the most important things you can do, right? So trying to get your loved one to admit they have dementia, trying to get your loved one to admit they were lying, reminding your loved one they can't do certain things. All of those things, while they might make sense to us and don't seem like a big deal, they wear away at your relationship. And anything that you do that wears away at your relationship is going to make your caregiving job so much harder down the line. They're going to start to resent you, be frustrated with you, resist your care. And so there are going to be times when you absolutely have to step your foot down, or you absolutely have to stop them from doing something that's going to make them in danger. And so you want to save it for those things because that's when it really matters. And if you want things to be as easy as possible for you, and that's not the greatest use of words because I know it's not easy, but you want to let some of these other things go and think about what's the biggest goal here. The bigger goal is keeping your loved one safe, keeping him from driving, whatever the case may be. The goal is not to get him to admit he did something that he says he didn't do. So I hope that makes sense. It's really, really important. It's one of the most important teachings anybody can ever get when they're caring for a loved one with dementia. Hi, Jesus is God. How would you go about getting an 85-year-old mom who thinks she is fine, but neighbors and family know there is a memory problem to assisted living or memory care facility? Yeah, this is a great question. I think it's important to keep in mind. Majority of people are not going to be excited to go to a care facility. Majority of people are going to do whatever they can to maintain their independence. Like, it's super scary. So I think the first thing is to approach this with understanding and compassion. Like, you're asking your loved one to do something that either, number one, it's very scary. Not many people do that willingly or with enthusiasm. And number two, it's possible that your mom just doesn't believe she has a problem, right? It's possible your mom has anasagnosia where it's not denial, but she's just completely unaware of how much care she needs. And so that being said, most people, when it comes time that they need a care facility, if the person has dementia, that decision falls on the family. That decision falls on you. The whole point of somebody with dementia needing a Careblazer or a caregiver is because they are no longer in the position of being able to make some really important decisions on their own. That's the hardest part. Like, you're having to make decisions that your loved one may not agree with. And it very well could be the best absolute choice for your loved one. Your loved one may never see it that way. So there's a couple of things, like, you have to decide, is this the time? Even though she doesn't want to go, like, how do we get her to go? Could it be a temporary test run? Could it be there's work done on the house while she's staying somewhere? Could it be that you get the doctors or the healthcare providers involved saying this has to happen? Sometimes it gets to the point where it's so dangerous that one of the adult protective services or something gets involved. It's great if you could avoid that at all costs, but they come in and they say there's no choice. She has to go. But usually just acknowledging your mom's anxiety or concern, or just saying it's temporary, it's a trial run, saying it's a move to a fun apartment complex or where there's more friends or more activities. You know what might work best with your mom. And then to help facilitate that transition, setting up her room as much as possible with familiar items and loved items that she likes, like whether it's, trying to make it feel like home, like having her same comforter and her sheet set, putting some photos in the room to get it going, talking to the healthcare staff of whatever facility you're looking at and asking them what's, that your mom is pretty hesitant or doesn't want to, and how can they help make this transition easier? You don't have to put it all on your shoulders. Like, rely on the healthcare team, rely on the staff that you're going to. And I'm actually going to drop a video for you into the chat here. That you can watch with more details. So there's a couple ones for you. I think this is Jesus is God is asking this. Yes. Okay. So a couple videos here. One was an interview I did with an owner of a care facility. And the whole interview was how and when to move someone with dementia to a nursing home. So I'm going to drop that one to you first, if you haven't watched it already. And then I did one on the transition and helping your loved one get there. Actually, I'm going to do this one. How to get your loved one with dementia to go to a nursing home. 4 years ago, I did this one. I'm going to drop that one. It's an oldie, but a goodie, and I think it can help. So those would be two places I would start for you. Hi, Stapple from Waterloo, Canada. I wonder if that beverage, there's like a beverage out called Waterloo. I wonder if that's where it's from. Hi, Holly. Challenge with aggressive behavior towards other residents. So number one, if it's a new aggressive behavior, your loved one is acting unusual, out of sorts, out of character, we always want to get that checked out medically to make sure there's not an infection. Otherwise, assuming there is no infection, this is where the staff really comes into play. This is where you really want to put on the detective hat. I did 2 videos on trying to get to the bottom of difficult dementia behaviors, like finding the trigger. There's what is causing your loved one's aggression. So there's so many things that can cause your loved one's aggression in this case. Is he bored? Is he confused? Is there not a lot of stimulation? Is there too much stimulation? Does he need some activity? And it's more than that. Like, hopefully there's really good staff there, because they need to be observing what is happening right before the aggression. Who is around? What time of day is it? What's going on? What's your loved one saying? What specifically is he doing? Like, they need to gather all of that information. Once you get that information, you can try to figure out, okay, where do we want to intervene? We notice that it's always happening at shift change, when all of the staff are talking and nobody's paying attention, or it's always happening when a recreation activity is about to begin or has just ended and there's no longer clear direction from the activity facilitator, or it's always happening around mealtime when the person sitting next to him gets fed or gets the plate before he does. Like, I actually just wrote a video on this. I won't release for probably another month or so, but when your loved one is doing an aggressive behavior or a challenging behavior, it means they're in distress. They are trying to communicate something. When we look at it through our eyes, we think it's just annoying, frustrating, a nuisance, something that's bothersome, but we need to figure out, no, that it's actually trying to communicate something, and we can't look at it through our eyes. What in the world are they trying to communicate? What is it that's causing this behavior? And it doesn't have to make any sense to us. It could literally be that the person gets food right before them. And you can try to explain to your blue in the face that, oh, it's okay, everybody gets food, but they might still be acting aggressive. So the case is, okay, how do we get him his food first? Like, for instance, like, that's just one example. But the key here is to ask the question, the staff at the facility your loved one is in, and also you, like, what could be causing it? There is a cause. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because when we realize there's a trigger, there's a cause to it, it keeps our mind open to look for solution. It keeps our mind open to look, okay, what could it possibly be? It is not your loved one just trying to be troublesome. When you have that belief, you shut down the possibility of ever finding what is causing it, and it just puts more strain on the relationship. So pay very close attention to what is going on, who's around, what time of day, what your loved one is saying, what's going on, and then start to come up with interventions from there. Again, I did 2 videos that go together, a 2-part series, Holly, on finding the trigger. That is what you want to do. Let me see if I can find that for you real quick. I call it becoming the detective. Let's see. Sometimes I can't find things. Oh, is this it? Yes, I found the video for you, Holly. It's called "Get Rid of Difficult Dementia Behaviors: What You Need to Know." Copy. Holly, I'm pasting it right now for you. Brenda, your question's going to be best answered by whoever is prescribing the albuterol or whoever is managing your mom's dementia. So the neurologist or the PCP or the pulmonologist, like bring up those with your mom or with your mom's healthcare providers. Also, I want to just let all of you know, for those of you who might be really interested in the science, really interested in like the evidence, you have an interest in yourself and not only just believing what somebody says, but like let's say you go to a doctor's appointment and they're like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that medicine, or it's fine, or it doesn't really have that impact. There is a system where you can look up scholarly research articles for free. It's written for the scientific audience. So if you're into that kind of thing, you can read all about the studies, about the outcomes, about everything on pubmed.com. If you go to pubmed.com, it's a very simple website. There's a little search bar, kind of looks like a Google search bar, but it's PubMed. And you can just type in albuterol and dementia, or albuterol and memory, or steroids and memory. And you can get all of the information if you want to be really prepared when you go to your loved one's prescribers or treating providers and say, how is this impacting? I read this and this is what it says. I'm really concerned. That's like not everybody wants to go dive deep into that level, but it's there for you if you want it. Hi, Sandra. I believe my mother is having a mental health issues as she is hearing voices, talking to herself, and hallucinating. Okay, so it's okay, Nico. You can lay down. Nico is coming over. He's okay. There you go, Bubby. So in dementia, it's totally possible and not uncommon for people to see things that aren't there, to have visual hallucinations, and sometimes hearing voices that aren't there, like auditory hallucinations. Just because she's talking to herself doesn't mean she's having auditory hallucinations. She could just be talking to herself. But this is something that, so like a mental hallucinations, delusions, those kinds of things are common in psychotic disorders, mental health conditions like schizophrenia, for instance. Those disease diagnoses are going to be made earlier in life, like in somebody's 20s, 30s. They're not going to come out when somebody it's very, very, very rare it's ever going to come out in like when they're 60, 70, 80. If it's coming out at that age, it's a symptom of their dementia or a possible delirium. So people with dementia do have hallucinations. They might see things that aren't there. They might believe things that aren't true. They might hear things that aren't there. So those are always things to bring up with the treating provider. They might want you to see your loved one to see a geriatric psychiatrist. There might be medications they would want to prescribe. Sometimes the hallucinations are not bothersome to the person with dementia. They're more bothersome to the family. So that's really important too to keep in mind. Like if your mom, did you say your mother? Yeah. If your mother is just talking to herself and doesn't seem bothered by it, like that's important for the healthcare provider to know, because that would be a scenario you would want to provide a new medication for if the only person it's really bothering is you. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. But hallucinations happen in dementia, happen like in certain dementias more than others, especially Lewy body dementia. They tend to be like insects or animals or little kids. Sometimes they're not even bothered by them though. So that's why it's important to know, like, is your loved one bothered by this? If so, then that's when your healthcare provider might really want to talk about a medication. Otherwise, if she's not, might want to talk about just how do you manage it, like when she is having that hallucination, comforting her, reassuring her, redirecting her, engaging her in another activity. Non-medication approaches can be really helpful in that approach. The medication is always the last line. We don't go there first whenever somebody with dementia is having these symptoms. So if you can manage them by just comforting her, redirecting her, engaging her in another activity, that's always really great. Hi, Mercy from Tempe. Hello, Denise from Phoenix. Everybody's from the Phoenix area. I'm up in Munns Park. I'm out of the heat for now, although I hear it's not too hot down there. We should do a little Phoenix meetup. I'm sorry to hear about everybody's experience with their loved one and the vaccine commenting. Oh. Sorry, I'm going through all the questions here. Yeah, I'll leave this up on my YouTube channel. You can come back and watch. When they get angry, what's the best response? So, you always want to pay attention. Again, go back, watch one of the videos I linked here, like what's causing the anger? Like what's the trigger? You might want to avoid those topics of discussion. You might want to avoid or minimize the chances of that happening again by trying to figure out, okay, when does this usually happen? What's happening? Like then you can intervene in the environment versus trying to get your loved one to change. Otherwise, if your loved one is angry, that's where you want to avoid. It's hard because your reflex might be you want to defend yourself. You like verbally defend yourself. You might want to explain things. You might want to be very rational, but for your loved one, it might not work that way. The whole goal is to respond to the emotion, to comfort them and calm them, right? They are having a very valid emotion. So keep yourself safe. If you need to keep yourself safe, remove yourself, do it. That's never something you can't do. Make sure your safety is a priority. They might need some time to cool off. You might just want to say, you know what, I'm sorry, I think things got out of hand. Like let's watch a movie, let's go for a walk, or just let them have their space. If they're getting angry a lot, you could talk to loved one providers. I see somebody talked about like what meds for anger. There are medications that can help with that, but they're usually very sedating and they come with a lot of negative side effects. We don't ever want to jump to those medications. Again, it's all about how you approach your loved one. How can you avoid those situations in the first place? And then when you respond to them, finding ways to respond that calm them down quicker rather than making them more angry. A lot of times our natural reaction tends to make the person with dementia more angry because we're coming at it from our viewpoint instead of their viewpoint. I did a video a while ago called Dementia Anger, I think. I'm going to look for that and put it in here. I'm trying to get to as many questions as possible. That's why I'm not going into too many details with some of these questions because I've done full videos on them. Okay, I have a video here for you that's called 10 Tips for Responding to Dementia Anger. I'm going to put that into the chat right now. So hang on. So 10 tips for responding to dementia anger. That is, I'm sorry, the questions are fast. I've already lost you, but several of you had questions with anger. That link I just put in. My mother sometimes becomes aware that she has become very forgetful, which makes her very upset. She asks us outright if she has dementia. What is the proper way to respond to that? We've tried saying being forgetful happens to everyone sometimes, but she replied, I know you're lying about how bad my condition is. Yeah, so usually I don't recommend reminding somebody they have dementia, but your case is different, Raf, because your mom is aware of it. And I did a video on that. You can search my channel, but I'll give you some information right now. Like, don't you think it's totally normal if all of a sudden, like, you couldn't function, you couldn't work your cell phone, or you were having trouble getting dressed, or you couldn't work the remote control, or you couldn't figure out how to like cook something you've been cooking your whole life. Like, it makes total sense that somebody would be scared and nervous and concerned about that if they have awareness of that. And it sounds like your mom has awareness of that. So again, it's just kind of coming at it like that's a totally normal approach for your mom to have, right? So you can, if she asks you if she has dementia, it sounds like she has some awareness of it. In those cases, you could say, because your mom is getting the sense that you're lying or you're pushing it off or you're minimizing. So in your situation, you could say, that's what the doctors say. The doctors do say you have that. That might be why you're having some of these problems. But then you comfort and you reassure and you say, you know what, we're going to get through this together. I'm going to be here for you. I'm going to be here with you every step of the way. Sometimes my brain has those same problems and it's really frustrating. I know it must be frustrating for you too. Like, totally normalize it. I think a lot of times, I did a video on this recently, just in terms of our loved ones with dementia still have very real emotions and reactions. And in many cases, it's not something to be fixed or to take away. Like, we're not going to take away your mom's sadness or concern that her brain's not working well if she notices her brain's not working well. So you can acknowledge it, acknowledge her totally normal reaction, and comfort her and let her know you're going to be there for her. And talk about how can we set up things to make it easier for you. Like, think about what are the things that are really like struggling for your mom, and maybe how can you make it so that they're a little bit easier, like putting things in place, whether it's reminders, signs, easier recipes. Like, she can still have a very full life doing things she enjoys. It just might be with some adaptations. So for you, Raf, I think it's okay for you to say, yeah, the doctors are saying that. How do you feel about it? I'd probably feel that way too. You know what? You're not alone, and we're going to get through this. We're going to, there are some things to do to try to help keep your brain as healthy as possible. Let's start by figuring out like our exercise routine or our diet. And like, you guys can start doing these things together and creating a plan. I also did a video. It's actually called Dementia Joy Plan, Raf, if you want to look it up, on when somebody has dementia. How do you want to go through it, right? Because it's going to get worse. Like, since your mom has some awareness and sounds like she can participate, like, have her be a participant in how she wants her future to look and how she wants things to go. You guys can start having those conversations. How do I take over paying the monthly bills? Mistakes are being made, late payments. She said she will, but never transfers responsibility. You could help her. Best bet would be to put like automatic payments, like just set it up for automatic bill pay. That way it's not an issue and it's going to be done. So if I don't know what your relationship is to this person, if it's like a parent or a spouse and you have that ability to just like set it up for bill pay, that would be great. And depending on your level of comfort and how you feel and, truly having good intentions, you could just possibly do that. And you could sit down with her and say, you know what, there's a late payment. Like, you don't have to cut her out entirely if she's hesitant to it. You can say, late payments, let's save you some money. Let's figure out what we're going to do. We can set this up so it's paid every month, and you won't have a late payment again. And like, include her. Like, so it's not a one size fits all for everybody. Like, if somebody was really paranoid, suspicious of you, didn't want you involved at all, you might have to be a little bit more discreet and like not as obvious and set her up for those things. Or intercept the paper payments that come and do it, and like just start doing it for her. If it's somebody who doesn't have that level of suspiciousness and paranoia, include them and start taking it like this, and don't look at it as a complete transfer of power. Like, look at it as doing it together. Oh, Eileen, you said you contacted the system with your question. That's great. When hygiene starts slipping, but my husband is very independent, how should I best care for him in this way and still provide him with some dignity? Yeah, so trying to make things as easy as possible. I don't know what hygiene you're talking about. So like, for instance, trying to normalize things, not highlighting his deficits, but like, if it's bedtime and it's time to brush teeth, like, you guys just do it together. Like, hey, let's brush our teeth. Or I got you this really cool new, I don't know what they're called, automatic toothbrush, vibrating tooth, like, hey, I got us both new toothbrush. Like, let's do this. Like, start doing things together like that. Maybe having some, like, if he's having trouble in the shower, like, I don't know, every situation's different. Like, could you just like happen to be going into the bathroom when he's showering and be like, hey, here's a washcloth I found. I didn't know if you had it. Like, can you, like, you start doing those steps like that. You can also help him in the shower, but like, if he's open to it, but let him do as much as possible. Like perhaps he still maintains control over some more private areas and you help wash his back. You'd be like, oh, you know what? I'm having a hard time washing my back. How's your back? Like, let me get your back. You can buy him a new body wash or a new soap. You can have wet wipes available. You can brush his hair because you want to and not make it because his hair looks sloppy. Like it's a lot of times about the approach. And then just also when it's about his dignity, like these are things where you keep them covered up as much as possible when you are doing some things, or when you do care tasks. This is a good tip for Careblazers too. Like when you're doing care tasks, it could be awkward for you. It could be awkward for your loved one. So like, how do you normalize it as much as possible? Like have a story to tell when you're doing it. That's totally unrelated. Have a joke to tell. Talk about something you saw on TV or a news show or something on the news or something about the kid. Like just like make it as normal as possible. Like I think sometimes about going to the doctor and how awkward it is, like for some of the things. And I'm like, and it's like always the best when the person just like makes it a normal thing. Like, oh, how's your day going? Oh yeah, later on today, I'm going to go out to dinner, but it's just like they don't focus on like they're not talking about the task. They're not making it like super awkward. Those are some of the things, some of the tips off the top of my head. I do have some videos too. Christy, if you want to look up, Google Careblazers bathroom, and that will come up with several videos that could help you with some tips. You're welcome, Mike. Yes, Steve, I will have this. This will just be a video on my YouTube channel. You can come back and watch. Susan says to Peggy that her husband takes memantine now. Memantine, yeah. So that's usually prescribed more in the moderate stages. A lot of times it's prescribed together with donepezil, but in your case, it sounds like it replaced the donepezil because your loved one had bad reaction. Ugh, this is the worst. Mrs. McDee's, yes, so hard. She says, any advice on paying for in-home care? Insurance doesn't cover, and I make too much for husband to get Medicare. It's so hard. There's got to be so many changes. So a couple of ideas would be to contact, I don't know what kind of dementia your loved one has. No matter what kind of dementia, contact the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 hotline. Ask them if they know of any resources, grants, funding that you can apply for. I personally know Careblazers who have called that number and have had some success. It just depends on the time of year, what's going on, what donations they got, that they have gotten some money. If your loved one is in the VA system at all or a veteran, get in the VA system, if nothing, just to get care in home that's paid for. If you're in the United States, the local area agency on aging, contact them. There's different ones depending on where you live, but just Google local area agency on aging. The one closest to you will likely pop up. Call their number and ask them what services they have. Let them know your situation. You can also contact if your loved one has like another type of dementia, like the Lewy body dementia. There's a Lewy body association. Look up the Lewy body dementia association. Contact them. Ask them what they have going on. A lot of times it really is, unfortunately, I wish it was so much easier, contacting them and saying, do you know of any help? Is there any help out there that you can offer to me? I really need some more in-home care. Other ideas would be if you have a community of friends or a group that you attend, whether it's like a women's group, a church group, a dementia caregiver group, just random friends, how can you either like ask them to have some help? Like it might not be official, formal in-home caregiving at the same time every day, but perhaps you could really use like just a break, like asking a friend, can you come sit with my loved one while I run some errands to the grocery store, or while I just sit in my room and try to nap, or whatever the case may be. Like, don't hesitate to use those informal circuits of possibilities for help. And then if you know other dementia caregivers in your area, even like trading, like taking turns if you feel comfortable. Like, hey, can you come, once on the first Wednesday of the month, I'll come on the second Wednesday of the month. And we can rotate back and forth, like things like that might be helpful. I know it's extremely uncomfortable because A lot of people aren't used to asking for help, but just really keeping your eyes and ears open for those possibilities. So call all those places, but also if anybody ever asks you, hey, if there's anything I can do to help, say, you know what, like, I'd love for you to come by and sit with Joe for a couple hours if you can. They can always say no. Either way, you weren't going to get it if you didn't ask, but like start practicing being uncomfortable with responses like that if you trust that person to come and be with your loved one. And in the beginning, you don't even have to leave. It could just be time for you not to have to like literally be next to your loved one. What's the difference between denial and anasagnosia? Yes, that is one of my most popular videos. So denial is just like somebody in denial, right? Like, I don't have dementia. Like, nope. Or like, I'm not wearing a green shirt. I don't care what way you tell me. Like, nope, not wearing a green shirt. And like, in denial, there is a possibility that the person could come around. Like, you could come and present me all of the crayons that exist in the world and you could say, oh, see this color, it says green and that's the same color as your shirt. And the person could eventually be like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's green. I just really didn't want to be wearing a green shirt. Don't like the idea of a green shirt, but I get it. It's green. Denial. There is the possibility that the person will at some point realize whatever they believe isn't actually the case. Anasagnosia, which is common in dementia, is when it stands for lack of awareness. They are not aware of their deficits, no matter how you try to explain it, no matter what evidence you provide, no matter who you get to tell them, they're never going to believe it because their brain does not have that connection. If you ever find yourself in the position of trying to convince your loved one that they can't do something because of dementia or that they have dementia, stop. That's one of the most detrimental things you can do to your relationship, and it's not helpful, and it's going to put a huge strain on your relationship and in many cases not do what you want it to do, just make things more frustrating for the both of you. So anasagnosia, there is no chance that they're going to have the awareness. This happens a lot in younger folks with traumatic brain injury too. Like, maybe they have a traumatic brain injury and they're recovering, but they don't have awareness that they can no longer do certain things, or they're not aware of their deficits. So it's not specific to like older adults or just dementia in general. It's a symptom of a brain condition that no matter what you do, they're just not going to ever get it. So don't try to make them get it. Myra, when my husband starts building up anger, I try to divert his attention, quickly take a ride, get ice cream, walk, anything to reduce his anxiety. That's awesome, because what you're saying there is you're noticing the signs that lead to his anger building up. So you're attuned to it. You start to know, even if you're not sure what the trigger is. That's really good, Myra. Thank you for saying that. Even if you can't figure out the trigger yet, you're still working on figuring out what's triggering the anger. You likely already know signs that he's getting upset, signs that your loved one's getting anxious, signs that your loved one's getting angry before it's full blown. So pay really close attention to that. Like, do they become more fidgety, more restless? Maybe they're pacing, maybe they're refusing to eat. Like, what are their particular signs that suggest that anger is mounting? And then you have to decide, how do you want to respond? I did post that link to 10 tips to respond to dementia anger. It's going to be different for everybody. For some Careblazers, it might just be that you want to be out of their way and leave the room and let them be on their own. For other Careblazers, it might be you need to get them involved in an activity that they enjoy, or a snack or something like that. So it just depends. And just as a general rule of thumb, I know I've mentioned this in past videos before. My Care Course members know about it. But the right approach to use and the right response to use with your loved one is the response that they respond well to. Do not be down on yourself if you respond in a certain way and your loved one gets more upset. That's just feedback. Okay, that's good to know. I'm going to try something different next time, right? Nobody's perfect. You don't know it until you try it. And even if something's worked for you in the past, it might not work for you in the future as their disease progresses. And if something didn't work in the past, it might work for you in the future as the disease progresses. So it never benefits you to beat yourself up or to be frustrated with yourself for not getting it right. Nobody gets it right ever 100% of the time. It's just impossible. It's not feasible. Don't hold yourself to that standard. Just be very curious, open mind, flexible, and just start trying things, and you'll learn really quickly what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. If someone is put in a nursing home, can they ever come home for a day visit? The person has Alzheimer's. Yeah, sure. Um, it's not jail. Like I know for the person who has dementia, oftentimes it does feel like they're in prison or in jail. But every facility has their own rules. Just talk to them about how it works. Some people get passes. Some people go away on little trips. Some people spend time with family on the holidays. Um, there might be rules. Sorry, there might be rules in terms of what needs to be done before they come back, especially now amidst COVID, or depending on how long they were gone. You also just want to keep in mind too, like making sure your loved one will be agreeable to go back after you take your loved one out for a day or two or a trip. Like as you start going back, like sometimes they might refuse or not want to. So just there's a bunch of different things to keep in mind when you want to take your loved one out. But yeah, it's totally common for people to be in a care facility and their loved one to come take them for lunch or take them for dinner or take them to the house for some reason. Like absolutely. Wanda, yeah. So your mom has Lewy body dementia. She thinks there's ants all over her body. So something you could try doing, obviously, I'm assuming you've already talked to the doctor about this, but things like um, when she's doing it, comforting to her and say, you know what, mom, let me help you with that. We're gonna let's move you from this position. There seems to be a lot of ants over here. Let's move you over here. We're gonna get you taken care of and cleaned up. And so then you're kind of like, you're not saying they're not there because they are there. That's another important thing to handle with hallucinations. They are seeing it. Their brain is predicting this image. So when you say they're not there, that's not a great approach. But let's take care of it. Let's move from this area. I think they're more common here. Let's come over here. This is really clean area. Check for ants, and then get her engaged in activity. Right. So, like, if your mom is just sitting, not doing anything, it's going to be more likely that they're happening and she's going to be trying to pick them up, pick them all over. If you kind of get her engaged in an activity or try to keep her active, it might be less likely that she's focused or obsessed with that, as you say. I know it's hard to keep our loved ones totally preoccupied 24/7. So that's going to be a challenge. The other thing, Wanda, is if your mom isn't bothered by it, like if she's just, a lot of times in Lewy body dementia, the person isn't bothered by it. I don't know if it is for your mom or not. Like if she's not bothered by it, just working on your own and like letting her pick some of those ants as long as she's safe and in no harm, but really weaving in there like different activities, comforting her, reassuring her, just simply moving her to a different environment can be helpful, even if it's just a different chair or a different seat. How important is it to get a diagnosis? We've been advised by a geriatrician, neurologist, and hospital that dad can't be assessed because of his aphasia. Okay, so you can get assessed with aphasia. Couple of things. The first question, important. Um, yes and no. I did a video on this too, but in the beginning, if you're not quite sure what's going on, absolutely a diagnosis is important because it could be something else. There are things that look like dementia that aren't dementia. So if your loved one, if it's not like 100% certain your loved one has dementia, you want to get tested. They need blood work. Make sure they don't have severe depression, make sure hearing is checked, make sure, their lab levels are good. Like they don't have a infection that's causing all this. Like that is extremely helpful. Also, in the beginning, it can be helpful because there might be certain meds that are more helpful than others, depending on the diagnosis. At some point, like once the person gets into the moderate or severe stage, like I know there's plenty of people who have never had formal testing, and it's okay because their loved one is at a point where it's so severe, it's pretty obvious to everybody. And putting the person through all that testing is just simply not worth it and can be considered cruel. So like it kind of depends like where in the process your loved one is in. Aphasia, there's different types of aphasia. I don't know what kind of aphasia your loved one has and what you're referring to, but aphasia is like an impairment in the language. Sometimes people can't speak, like they can't get the words out, or when they speak, it's word salad. It doesn't make sense. They're not real words. So that's like expressive aphasia, or it could be aphasia of language of like not understanding words. Call it receptive aphasia. So like you could tell the person like pick up the cup and like they have no idea what you're saying. The best, if you really want an assessment, assuming this is what's happening and it is aphasia, your two best bets will be a neuropsychologist. There's tests out there that can be done with people who can't speak or who are having a hard time understanding. I mean, it might just be that they give you, okay, let me back up. Neuropsychologist, speech pathologist. Those are the two best bets if you're dealing with somebody who has aphasia and you're trying to figure out what's going on. For me, I think in your situation, why that would be best, especially maybe a speech pathologist, would be, okay, so your loved one has aphasia. They might not be understanding you or they might not be able to communicate. A speech pathologist is really great in terms of giving you ideas of how to improve communication, right? Like they are experts in, would your loved one benefit from a book with pictures? Like your loved one, let's say your loved one is not able to say what they need. Maybe do they have the ability to point to a picture of water when they're thirsty? Like things like that. Testing, if it's comprehensive testing, nothing that a neurologist would ever give you, a PCP would ever give you, an MD would never give you any of these tests. They give you like really brief ones. Going to a speech pathologist or a neuropsychologist will do in-depth testing and be able to give you those recommendations to help. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, we've got about 12 more minutes here. I'm going to go through. Wendy, my heart goes out to you. Your dad passed away a couple months ago. Yeah, so your whole life just changed. Like, first of all, your life changes when you become a full-time Careblazer, caring for your loved one, appointments, all the things, and all of a sudden your loved one's gone. And it's like you're learning how to figure out your life now. How do you want to live it? What do you want to do? But in the meantime, you're grieving. Like, my recommendation to you, Wendy, is to like be kind to yourself, show yourself love. You know how to be an excellent caregiver because you are an excellent caregiver for your dad. Anybody who's spending time watching any of my videos, I have no doubt you're doing amazing. Don't ever doubt yourself. So like give yourself some of that care. If you are still a caregiver, I want you to focus that on you. How would you caregive for you right now? Like allow yourself to be sad, allow yourself to be in grief. Take your time, no pressure on yourself to feel any kind of way. Don't try to feel like you should be doing all the things, but just like truly right now, love yourself. Be kind to yourself. Reach out to friends and family just to talk. Do something good for yourself. Try to maintain healthy habits. Like you don't have to jump into everything right away, but like, are you at least like eating okay during the day? Like basic stuff. Are you getting out of bed during the day? Are you putting on some clothes, right? Connect with people. Maybe find a grief support group so you can talk to other people who are grieving and just really no pressure on yourself. Like there's all these things. Most people in our society are just in the world are very uncomfortable around death. They don't know what to say. And they all have ideas about like, oh, it's just your dad. You should be over it by now. Or it's been 2 months. You should move on. Or no, just drop all of that. Honor your body. Honor how you feel. No pressure. And then just really make sure you direct your caregiving ability to yourself. You are now the person you need to caregive for. And like, yeah, it's really tough. And the reason it's tough is because you loved your dad. That's the thing. Like, I thought about this today. I thought about there is no grief without love. Think about it. Like the only reason any of us grieve is because of love. Otherwise, if you didn't love your dad, you wouldn't be grieving. You'd be fine and you'd be moved on. So this is the price we pay for our love. And that's what this is a sign of, is just how much you love your dad. So I don't want to like try to change that for you or take it away from you. I think it's a normal reaction. Yeah. So for the person who says, my mom has to go to dialysis 3 times a week, it upsets her, just the process, no way to avoid this trigger, and it's necessary for her survival. Yeah. So like that's her trigger, like getting the dialysis. She doesn't like it, but she has to get it. What can you do to make that time on the dialysis machine a bit better? or enjoyable. And here's the biggie, because you're not going to take this away, because this is something she's going to be doing forever, or unless she gets a kidney transplant, I suppose. Like, you are going to have to be comfortable with your loved one's discomfort. That's a really big thing. Like, I don't know very many people who enjoy going to dialysis, and a lot of people don't like it. It tires them out. It's not enjoyable. Like, take dementia out of it. It's not an enjoyable experience. You're not going to take that. So because you can't take that away, like, how can you just get comfortable? Like, yeah, I know. Like, I get it. Makes sense. I wouldn't enjoy it either. And then after you have like space for yourself to just accept this is the reality, it's a reality. Your mom's not going to like to go to dialysis 3 times a week. You wouldn't like it either. Is there anything you can do to help make that dialysis experience better, right? Whether it's like a good show on an iPad, a book, magazine, reminiscing about memories. I don't know if they're allowed to snack or eat while they're there. Like, it just depends. Like, what can you do to make that experience better would be one approach. But the big approach for you, I think, is going to be getting comfortable with your mom having to do something that she doesn't like doing, but she has to do. It's unfortunate. I mean, quite frankly, it sucks. So you're not going to be able to take that away because her life depends on it. So how are you going to make room for yourself to just like, know this is an uncomfortable situation? Hi, Robin. So for your dad who's in a memory care facility who doesn't have anybody to communicate with because the other residents are worse off, this would be a case where I would encourage the staff to communicate with him. Like, he can communicate with staff, encourage the staff to talk to him, ask him questions, see if other family members or friends can give him a call, maybe do some FaceTime or like some Zoom calls. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be with the other residents there, maybe with the staff members, but you might also be able to talk to your dad because he's with it more. Like, having him think about how he is can be an inspiration for those people, or how he can maybe help those people. I know he can't really, and you have to be careful. Like, he's not going to try to do hands-on care, but like, consider it in terms of like him kind of being a volunteer there to help those people. Like, instead of him getting his communication needs from those people, perhaps he's helping them by giving them compliments, by, just like saying statements to them. But his conversations are going to be better met through staff, through you, and through other family member and friends. Your mom doesn't want to get her jammies on when it's time for bed. Why is that? I don't know. I'd be very close, pay close attention. But think about it. Like, for somebody with dementia, like, I'm guessing, does she get things to question yourself on? Does she get undressed herself, or do you help her? Is she wearing clothes that are easy to take off and easy to take on? Has she forgotten the steps to put on her jammies? Is she just like, by the time it's time to changing into jammies, is it so late in the night that she's fatigued and tired and doesn't want to do it? Like, some days I don't want to do it, right? So like, you have to really get at the nitty gritty, like, what could possibly be going on? You might want to start out thinking like trying to do it earlier in the day, seeing if it helps her. And you can make it like, let's both get into some comfy jammies. I want to get comfortable for the nighttime and see what helps. See if like, perhaps like, these are simple things that we don't realize, but at some point in dementia, it happens. Literally, it becomes difficult to take on and off clothes. So it might be a time where you step in and offer some help. Maybe you get her some fun jammies or matching jammies, and you guys start in that way. But really starting to think like, instead of like, well, why is it? It's like, I'm really curious. How could I get her to get into jammies? And then also, I want to give permission every now and then. Like, if it really doesn't matter, like, maybe they don't get in their jammies one night. But just really starting to think like, maybe the buttons are too hard to take off on her pants, or maybe she's lacked energy, or maybe she's going to need more of your help. Like, all of these things you want to consider. Thank you, Nick. Oh, you're welcome, a lumpy horse. The difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. That is the very first video I ever did on this channel. Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. Dementia is a word similar to how cancer is a word. Cancer tells you somebody's sick, doesn't tell you what kind of sick. Is it brain cancer, breast cancer, skin cancer, lung cancer? You know, right? You don't know. You just know cancer means sick. Dementia is the same thing. Dementia means something's wrong with the brain, right? There's problems with the brain that are more than there should be for that age, but it doesn't tell you what kind it is. So Alzheimer's disease, the most common kind, Lewy body dementia, vascular dementia, frontal temporal dementia, right? There's different types of dementia, just like there's different types of cancer. So people use the term dementia and Alzheimer's interchangeably. Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. That's kind of the simplest way for me to describe it. Oh, a lumpy horse. A lumpy horse. I'm so sorry. You just lost your husband with dementia. Same thing that I said to the previous Careblazer, like love yourself, be kind to yourself, caregive to yourself, allow yourself to be at loss, with grief, in sadness. Like that is a process you have to go to. I wish I could wave a magic wand and take away all that emotional pain, but part of me actually doesn't, because I think it's just like it's totally a natural, normal thing to have to go through. And it's just a sign of your love. Surround yourself with people who you can talk to, who love you, who care for you, and just know that for any of you watching who have lost a loved one, you will always be a Careblazer at heart, forever, forever, forever. That is who you are. And just like, honestly, be kind to yourself. And there's so much crap out there about how you're supposed to move on in a certain period of time. Just do you. All right, let me see if there's any last minute things before we're done. Is the Careblazers page private? I have a group on Facebook that anybody can join. It's private in terms of closed, meaning like other people can't see what you're writing in there unless they're a member of the group. You just have to request to join. It's totally free, nothing with it. I just don't want it open. So like if you were to type something in there, like I don't want like your neighbor or any of your Facebook friends to be able to see it. Like it has to be a caregiver who joined the group. And yeah, that group is a really great place to ask questions, because you're asking questions to thousands of other Careblazers of what's helped them in that situation. This is a tough one. My loved one hates her Depends, will resist wearing, changing them, pulls out the padding, often hides soiled ones in odd places. Any advice most welcome. Yeah, so again, just be really patient and open to like just really curious on what could possibly help. It could be there might be other brands out there that are a little bit different than Depends that they might be open to. You might play around with like women's products that are meant to help with like menstruation that might be able to use in the meantime. Sometimes I recommend like making it as easy as possible to change. So like if by the toilet there was like a pile of clean Depends that she could easily change, or like when you know she's going in there, it's like everything is at your disposal to help her right away. Just get a really good handle on like what are all the odd places she leaves them in, and like try to take care of that as much as possible. Sometimes having like in the bathroom a trash can right there with clean Depends or whatever you're using. Trying to think of the brand somebody told me recently that they really liked. Just making it as really simple as possible for her to be able to change easily. It might be that, I mean, I'd also consider like the sizing of it. Are they comfortable? Like, is she in the right size? Are the clothes she's wearing over it comfortable? Like, I know you might like, it's easy to be like, oh, it's probably not that, but like, just really open your idea to any of these things. Because if it felt like regular stuff, like she wouldn't be pulling it. So like, what is it about this? Also might be like if she's like trying to hide the soiled ones, like is she too long in them? Like maybe getting on a bathroom schedule would be helpful for her, where she's not waiting until they're super soiled to throw them away, where they're really uncomfortable. Maybe there's some embarrassment of trying to hide it. Maybe there's a really like clear sign, like this is where her Depends goes. That's also a really good question, Mojo, to ask in the Facebook group, like of other Careblazers, like, has this happened to you? What did you do? They might have some other ideas in terms of triggers. Oh, that's what a lumpy horse is saying. Yes, definitely do that. Okay, awesome. Dawn, your husband passed away. I'm so sorry. Ugh. You know, here's the thing. This is a journey. This is a process. Like, it's okay. Like, just like nobody can get caregiving right the whole time, like, it's okay if, you know, you're still struggling on how to be kind to yourself. Like, it's a journey. You're looking for progress, not perfection, and just like reaching out to people when you really need to. And Don, I think you're a Care Course member. You can always come to my live Q&As. You can always still reach out and participate, even if you just want more information on the grief and on just how to get back to life and all of those things. Like, you're always welcome to come. Okay, Careblazers, we're at an hour. How did that go? How did that go so fast? Okay. Well, love to you all. Best of luck with everything. I know it's hard. Hang in there. You guys are doing really, really amazing. Oh, Jimmy, you found a Facebook page, but not a group. There is a group. Actually, let me just drop it in here, guys. There's a page where I just like announce some things, but there's a group that is closed. You have to request access to. And let me just get that for you, and I'll drop it in, and that way you guys can request access. Okay. Here you go. There you go. So it's facebook.com/groups/Dementia Careblazers. The link is there. If you don't do social media anymore, definitely so you're on YouTube, which is a form of social media. I have several videos on grief. You can type in like Careblazers and grief into YouTube. I'm always impressed, like under the comments of my videos, Careblazers give like comments and advice and recommendations and support to one another. You can always do that. I have my private care course, which is open several times a year, where I do live Q&As like this, and you can connect with other Careblazers that way. But that is not a free product. That is a paid thing. Things like social media are, although I know they have all kinds of issues, and I'm not a fan myself for some reasons, but it is the easiest way for me to give free, like to have a free platform for all of you. So I know it's not great. The other idea would be just to look in your local, contact your local Alzheimer's association, what local chapters are there, and kind of reach out in that way. I also just want to say, I do have some people who don't use social media anymore, but just join for like the support. They don't have any friends on social media friends. They don't engage with anything else. They just like belong to the group, and that is it. So that's also something to consider. You can even put a fake name in there. Like if you don't want your picture or fake name, put a picture of a flower or your pet, different name, however you need to do it. I totally get it. Okay. All right. I got to go, Careblazers. Sending love to you all. Thank you for joining me on this evening. Keep up the great work. I will keep putting out Sunday videos, and hang in there. All right. Bye.